Hey, welcome to another episode of Cutter One. I am your host, Jay, just Jay, your resident troublemaker and your resident culture warrior. I hope you are all doing well. All right, let's get right into it. This one is more of a technical one regarding sort of Lord of the Rings, the film adaptation, Peter Jackson's adaptation versus the Rings of Poops adaptation. Um, and I like it. So for those of you who are sort of have an interest in filmmaking or any sort of creative endeavors, you might find this one a little bit more interesting because it has to do with a lot of technical stuff. Well, not a lot of technical stuff, but they touch on it. So let's get right into it. This one's coming to us from the good folks at starteffects.com, and it says one simple trick made Jackson's Lord of the Rings elves superior to Rings of Power's mainstream ones. Okay, and you can already, just in that picture right there, let's just take a look at that picture for a second. You can already, you get the vibe, right? You see where they're going with this. And they, one looks ethereal, one looks almost otherworldly, the way Tolkien describes it, and one just looks like an actress in a movie. And again, I'm not knocking Morfydd Clark. Morfydd Clark is a very attractive woman, and I haven't seen her in other stuff, so I can't really speak to her acting abilities. I've seen her in Rings of Power, wasn't impressed, but as I've mentioned previously, could be, if you just give your actors, shit scripts to work with, they can only polish it up so much. You can only polish a turd so much, but it'll still be a turd. But as you can see, just in that imagery, Kate Blanchett's Galadriel, very ethereal, very otherworldly, very, you know, Tolkien-esque, for lack of a better term. Morfydd Clark's Rings of Power Galadriel, not so much. But let's read the article. Amazon's Rings of Power may feature more of the elves of Middle-earth than we have seen on screen before, but Peter Jackson's version of the Immortals still takes the cake, or at the least, the lambus bread. Jackson used several unique and skillful film techniques when making his beloved movie trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, including one in particular which perfected how he interpreted one of Tolkien's most significant races. Unfortunately, it is a method that Rings of Power has yet to master for their show. How Jackson portrayed elves in Lord of the Rings. In his books, Tolkien describes elves as the most beautiful and fairest of people, something that was not simple for Peter Jackson to achieve when his goal was to easily distinguish between various races. He turned to lighting and color schemes to help portray certain characters and their related characteristics. The end result included very bright, cold tones often used throughout his movies when depicting elves. It is easy to notice when observing the likes of Galadriel, Arwen, and Elrond in different scenes. The effect achieves an almost light glow from each character, indicating their relative strength and purity of spirit. This also does well in following the books. Tolkien described in one section of his novels that when Gildor and the woodland elves meet the hobbits, they appear to shimmer in the moonlight. Additionally, elves are not the only characters Jackson used lighting to portray a certain way. The ringwraiths, Nazgul, were always depicted with a darker or gray tone, suggesting their opposite nature to the other races, powerful but consumed by evil and bad will. Jackson's technique of manipulating the color and hue of the film itself proved effective. The method helps deliver a profound impression of how the audience should interpret each character differently, allowing the elves to appear on screen just as Tolkien described them. How Rings of Power does it differently. Unfortunately, it seems the Rings of Power did not quite follow suit when constructing their series and interpretation of the races of Middle-earth. Although the series certainly plays with techniques of tone and color, instead of lighter, colder tones, the show opted for brighter and warmer hues when depicting any of the Elvish characters. A few Elvish locations are included throughout the show, including the land of Valinor and the region of Lindon. Both appear in a gleaming, almost heavenly glow. These golden palettes may represent elves' angelic-like nature, yet Tolkien's elves were written as closely associated with the silver of starlight. Yes, that is 100% true. To depict them consistently embellished in gold seems to miss a vital aspect of their complex nature and lore. The Rings of Power still does a fantastic job depicting Middle-earth, including its characters. For example, the show displays some stunning scenery of Numenor. One scene I thought was really good of Numenor, along with the halls and people of Khazad-dûm. Was disappointed with that. Therefore, its depiction of Tolkien's race of elves cannot be too heavily criticized. Yes, it can. However, it's hard not to compare them to their counterparts in Jackson's films. The movies included much detail and care in how they chose to portray every aspect of the books. Although Rings of Power has clearly put much thought into their own interpretation, it can also be said the show has yet to reach the same level of intricacy as Jackson's films managed to do so well. Just one point is that, yes, as the article points out, the elves, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure I'm not mistaken, the elves, their main god, if you were, other than Eru himself, the person they most venerate is Varda. Okay, out of the Valar, it's Varda, and as Tolkien fans know, she is the goddess of starlight. She's the one who's created the stars and put the stars in the sky. She's the one that gives the trees their light. Okay, and that's who the elves, like, their number one goddess is Varda. Okay, and the elves always have a big thing with starlight, because it was the first thing that they see when they awake. Okay, when they awake, there is no sun and moon. They are not in Valinor where the trees are. They're in Middle Earth, and when they awake, the sky is it's a starry night sky. And they happen to awake just as Varda had put the constellation, which what we would refer to as the Big Dipper with the North Star, just as she had put that over Morgoth's realm, over Morgoth's lair. Just as she put it there, the elves awake, and it's the first thing that they see. So they've always been very big on their starlight. But I just thought it was interesting because this is a more technical thing. Again, as somebody who, again, not a Hollywood background, but a filmmaking background and a visual effects background. Yes, lighting and color. There's entire college level courses that you can take on film lighting and color theory for film. Okay. And that's what's at play here. And Peter Jackson used this in a way to give his elves that otherworldly, sort of ethereal vibe that you got every time they were on screen. That is completely lacking in the Rings of Power. And they chose, for some reason, to go with that golden hue to everything elvish. And again, I'll bring up the image again. You can see the difference in this picture. You can see which elf looks more ethereal and otherworldly and impressive, and which elf looks like an actor on a set. Right? You don't believe your lying eyes, damn it. But you get what I'm saying. So I'm actually glad that, like, it's a very technical take. Well, they don't go into the technicalities of it, but yes, there's psychological aspects to color and the whole 9 yards. And I could literally do an hour-long video just discussing that. And how Peter Jackson used it effectively in his adaptations versus how Rings of Power completely misses the boat on that one entirely. But I like the fact that they sort of took a more technical filmmaking aspect to this article. And it proves a point, like, that I've been saying, and why I will continue to point out that on every level, from storytelling to script writing to production quality, in aspects of how things are depicted on screen, even just through lighting, okay, how Rings of Power comes up short. It's just overall Forget being a Tolkien fan for a minute. Just if you're looking at what they were trying to do versus what they managed to accomplish, it's a failure on almost every level. Okay. And so, I'm glad they pointed that out, So, let me know what you think. Do you think that Peter Jackson's use of color and lighting gave his elves of Middle Earth a more ethereal, otherworldly vibe? Or do you think Rings of Power did it better with its sort of golden tinged hues to everything that was associated with the elves? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. It'll be interesting because this one is more of a taste, it's more subjective than a lot of other things that we point out here, contrasting between the shows and the movies and the show. Personally, I think Peter Jackson's are closer to the book, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Remember, if you like the video, then like the video. If you feel like sharing it, please feel free to do so. If you have not subscribed yet, I hope you would consider subscribing. I'm trying to get us to 500 subscribers. We're just about there. I think we're like 9 or 10 people away. But if we could do that before Christmas, that would be awesome. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I would hope you would consider it. If you have subscribed and you're returning, you are a beautiful badass. Got more stuff coming, got more things. I think when it comes to, we're going to start doing live streams. I think I may have like something. I'm toying with an idea of a monthly quiz with a prize. So that ought to be interesting. And I think I have something unique in mind. So I'll go into more details as I iron out the details. But until then, I will talk to you in the next one. Peace. Be good.